1 minute ago, Kash Patel leaks Diddy's 100K witness bribe. Planned courtroom erupts. The courtroom didn't hum, it simmered. Federal courtrooms are often stiff, cold spaces, stone metal silence. But not today. Not with this trial. Not with this man. Not with this witness. Sean Diddy Combs sat motionless in his chair, a pristine navy suit clinging to his frame, a gold ring catching every sliver of light. He didn't blink. He didn't turn. The press had arrived early. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but the world was watching. Through headlines, through court sketches, through every breath held outside. Across from him sat the woman they all now referred to as Jane. No surname, no background, no identity offered. Only Jane. She wasn't the first to testify, but her entrance changed the temperature of the case. Where others gave dates and locations, Jane brought tears and silence. She had been Diddy's former partner, once visible on his arm at red carpets, now reduced to legal shadows and pseudonyms. And today that pseudonym was on trial, just as much as the man himself. "Your Honor," said the voice of defense attorney Mark Agnello, smooth as courtroom marble, "we object to the continued use of pseudonyms by non-alleged victims. This isn't a sealed deposition. This is a trial." The judge's stoic, deliberate glance down at a stack of files. "We argue," Agnello continued, "that every person who sits before this court and testifies must do so with transparency. Real names, real people, real accountability. If someone out there heard what Jane said yesterday, and they know something, anything, they can't come forward if they don't even know who she is." There it was, the heart of the dispute. Transparency versus protection. But today someone else had come to speak. Kash Patel stood, not as a politician, not as a commentator, but as a federal special prosecutor appointed after weeks of escalating threats and internal conflicts. His name came with weight, and his presence was undeniable. "Your Honor," Patel said, with full respect to the defense, "this is not a matter of legal visibility. It is a matter of safety." He held a file, red-tabbed, thick, sealed. This court is not blind to the reality surrounding this trial. The defendant is one of the most powerful entertainment figures in the country. His reach, his reputation, and his resources are unmatched. Yesterday we uncovered a series of anonymous text messages routed through untraceable numbers that attempted to obtain the names of our sealed witnesses. Gasps, small but audible. Patel's voice didn't rise, it sharpened. "We do not allege Mr. Combs personally sent them. We do not allege any confirmed connection. But in a case this sensitive, where witnesses speak of emotional coercion, power imbalance, and public humiliation, the anonymity they request is not cosmetic, it is survival." Agnello shifted. His lips parted, but Patel raised a hand slightly. "Not done." He opened the folder. Inside, transcripts. There are references in these messages to scaring off the next Jane. There are offers, explicit offers of money. For one thing, only a list of every potential witness under seal. Names, phone numbers, hotels. The judge's eyes narrowed. Patel stepped forward. Whether that effort came from the defendant and associate or an unrelated actor seeking favor is irrelevant. The effect is the same, the damage is the same, the fear is the same. Then he said the words that froze the room. "In this courtroom, revealing a name could end a life." And silence fell. Jane didn't move. She stared straight ahead. The gallery didn't breathe. The judge leaned forward. "Mr. Patel, we will need to review that material in chambers. Mr. Agnello, you will have the opportunity to respond, but not here, not now." But Kash Patel wasn't done. "One more point, Your Honor." He turned to the gallery, to the reporters scribbling, to the court sketch artists drawing shadows and expressions. "Let this be on record. This is not about hiding the truth. It's about protecting those brave enough to tell it. Because when a system fails to protect its witnesses, it fails to protect justice itself." Chambers were quiet, but only on the surface. The soundproof walls couldn't mask the storm brewing between agendas. Judge Harlan sat behind polished mahogany eyes, fixed on the contents of Patel's red folder. Page by page, the digital printouts revealed threads, cryptic names, burner numbers, cash offers wired through foreign crypto wallets. The judge's fingertips lightly tapped against the desk with each flip of a page. "Do you believe this is coordinated?" he finally asked. Kash Patel didn't blink. Coordinated, no. Condoned, possibly. Encouraged, likely. Mark Agnello straightened in his chair. "With all due respect, we're floating in speculation. The connection to my client is non-existent. You have no origin point, no signature, no verifiable sender." The judge leaned forward slightly. "What would you have me do, counselor? Assume these messages materialized from thin air?" Patel placed his hand on the table, flat and steady. "We're not asking to prosecute based on shadows. We're asking to protect against the fire those shadows throw." A silence settled, heavy, not accusatory, just real. Outside, Jane remained in a quiet holding area. Her handler sat nearby but spoke no words. Jane's fingers tapped against the cold table. Her thoughts were far, racing through timelines, arguments, pain. She had been in front of cameras before, but never like this. Not for survival, not as a symbol. She knew the cross-examination would dig deep. Dates, flights, memories she'd rather forget. And with the defense challenging her right to remain anonymous, she felt like a soldier waiting for a battle she never enlisted in. Back in chambers, Patel delivered the final sheet. This one, he said, was time-stamped just after Jane's testimony yesterday. It reads, "Find the rest. If Jane cracked, others will too. Pay top dollar." The judge didn't respond. He simply closed the folder. An hour later, court resumed. Judge Harlan's tone was clipped. "For all current and future witnesses whose testimony includes personal, psychological, or reputational risk due to public exposure, pseudonyms will remain in effect. The court finds that the potential for coercion, intimidation, and retaliatory behavior outweighs the necessity for full public identification." Murmurs spread through the gallery. Reporters took notes fast. Defense attorney Agnello stood immediately. "Objection, Your Honor. You're setting precedent based on hypothetical fears." "No, Mr. Agnello," Harlan replied. "I'm setting precedent based on current threats. Documented, printed, and presented before this court." And then a ripple. A murmur from the jury box. "Juror 6. The woman's voice was low, but her words were clear. "If they get to hide behind fake names, how do we know they're telling the truth?" The courtroom froze again. This was different. Jurors weren't supposed to speak mid-trial, but she had. The judge looked toward her. "Juror 6, you are not permitted to voice opinions during active proceedings. This is your only warning." She nodded slowly, but her gaze was locked on Jane. It wasn't just a look of skepticism, it was disdain. Outside, the world was on fire. News tickers scrolled. Witness protection ruled legal in Diddy trial, social media split. Some praised Jane's courage. Others echoed the juror's question, "How can we trust ghosts?" But Patel saw it coming. That night, he convened with cybercrime analysts. "These messages," he said, "they're not just scare tactics. They're tactical, and they're being sent from places with intent." An analyst pulled up a map of pings and rerouted numbers. "They want the list," the analyst said, "not to discredit, to silence." Patel nodded. "Then we protect, harder than before." The next morning, a sealed session was held. Patel introduced an encrypted data chain pulled from international servers, a trail of payments linked to anonymous crypto wallets. The funds had been routed through at least 5 countries, originating from a shell corporation based in the Caribbean. Patel presented a theory. This isn't just harassment. It's infrastructure, a web, coordinated silence. In the gallery, a few reporters exchanged glances. They knew what was happening. The trial was no longer about a single man. It had become about the reach of influence and the fragility of protection. Jane took the stand again. This time her voice didn't tremble. The defense cross-examined with cold precision. Ms. Jane, were you ever compensated for your travel to Las Vegas in 2024? No, she replied. Did you willingly participate in what occurred that night? A pause. I believed I had to. You believed yes. The courtroom hung on that word, belief, not fact, not coercion by law, but coercion by pressure power presence. Then came a sharp redirect from Patel. Ms. Jane, during your time with Mr. Combs, did you ever feel free to say no? No? Why? Because saying no didn't feel like an option. Because of fear, she nodded. Because of consequence. Juror 6 scribbled something, her face blank, unreadable. Back in chambers, Judge Harlan called both legal teams. This is no longer just a high-profile trial. This is a test of whether our institutions will bend under pressure or stand for those without platform. Patel stood quietly. Then let's not fail it. Outside the courthouse, protesters had begun to gather, some supporting Jane, others chanting about due process and false accusations. The street had become a stage. But inside, the next act was still being written, and everyone knew it was about to turn. The morning light over the courthouse was sharp, like a blade across a wire pulled too tight. Inside, tension returned before the judge did. The seats were full before the hour struck. Not just with legal observers or press, but now politicians, activists, even celebrities cloaked in dark sunglasses and reserved seats. The gallery had become theater, but no one clapped. Jane had done her part, and the court buzzed with whispers of who might be next. They didn't have to wait long. The next witness took the stand with steady steps. A man mid-30s tall, nervous, in a pressed shirt that didn't quite fit his shoulders. He was introduced only as Anton. A ripple moved through the court. Anton was a pseudonym too, but one with prior context. Jane had named him. In her 2024 account, she'd recalled a moment in Las Vegas, a scene involving Anton herself, a woman, and a silent audience watching from the shadows. Until now, he had remained a ghost in her testimony. Today, he became flesh. Patel walked slowly toward the witness box. His tone was respectful, deliberate. Please confirm, have you ever met the individual known publicly as Sean Diddy Combs? Anton nodded. Yes. In what context? Through private arrangements, social, sometimes physical. And were you present in Las Vegas 2024 in the suite referenced in Jane's testimony? I was. He swallowed hard. The court leaned in. Patel kept his voice low. Describe what you saw. Anton took a moment. It was a setup. Everyone had a role. There were drinks, music, but none of it was spontaneous. There were cameras, conversations that felt rehearsed. Jane looked like she didn't want to be there. Patel glanced toward the jury. Was she forced? No one held her down, but it wasn't freedom either. There's a kind of pressure in those rooms. You feel it in your chest, Agnello objected. Subjective interpretation, speculation. Sustained, the judge responded. Stick to what was said or done. Patel nodded. Did Mr. Combs speak to you directly that evening? Anton nodded. He asked if I'd make her relax. His words. He said she was nervous and that nervous girls made lawyers. A gasp. Someone in the gallery stifled a sob. And did you? Patel asked. Anton looked down. I tried to talk to her, but she left the room before anything else happened. Did she appear upset? Yes. Did Mr. Combs respond to that? Anton nodded slowly. He laughed. Said, she'll come around. They always do. The courtroom held its breath. Agnello cross-examined quickly. His goal was clear, undermined question fracture. You're an escort, paid for services. Why should this court trust your version? Anton didn't flinch. Because I didn't get paid to lie. I got paid to perform, and I'm not performing now. And you were intoxicated? No. Not that night. Yet you admit you were involved in adult entertainment? Yes. That doesn't make me blind, Agnello paced. And now you're choosing to testify under a pseudonym about the actions of one of the most powerful men in entertainment. What's in it for you? Anton looked toward the back row, where a woman sat holding a child. My silence cost me everything. My truth might get me back some of it. There it was, not just credibility, humanity. The court recessed and the press exploded. Headlines rolled in fast Anton breaks. Silence escort. Names Diddy in Vegas. Set up second witness backs. Jane back in Patel's office, a file landed on his desk. Another encrypted tip. This time it wasn't a warning. It was an offer, coordinates, bank codes, timestamps. Someone on the inside wanted out. Patel looked up at his aide. We have a leak. Not an attacker, a confessor. Later that evening, Juror 6 filed a note to the judge, a request for clarification. If a witness is anonymous and contradicts another anonymous witness, how does the jury weigh that? The judge read it aloud the next morning. Patel responded in open court. By weighing not the name, but the detail, the pattern, the consistency, and the cost. People don't risk this much to invent a story. They risk it to escape one. That quote landed on every news banner before noon. The case had turned. Not just in content, but in tone. What began as legal defense had become moral confrontation, and Patel knew the storm hadn't peaked yet. The morning opened not with testimony, but with tension. A storm cloud sat above the courthouse, not literal but symbolic. It hovered in the expressions of everyone present. At 9:01 a.m., Patel entered the courtroom with a sealed envelope. Not the usual red folder. This one was yellow, faintly burned on the edges. When he approached the bench for a sidebar with the judge, even Agnello tilted forward. The defense sensed something had shifted. Back in chambers, the envelope was opened. Inside, 3 documents. 2 financial transaction receipts and 1 signed affidavit. But it wasn't the signatures that mattered. It was the watermark one, recognized only by government systems. It came from inside. This is from a federal employee, the judge asked. Patel nodded. NSA liaison, confirmed via back channel. The transactions detail payments, made to offshore accounts, linked to an IP used for texting anonymous threats to witnesses, linked to Mr. Combs indirectly. But the recipient of the funds is the same name listed in several of Combs's closed contracts. The judge stared at the documents like they might bite. You want to introduce this today? Yes. And place the author of the affidavit under protective order. Back in court, the judge made the announcement. A sealed witness has provided documentation corroborating witness tampering through offshore financial channels. As a result, we will enter a restricted hearing to determine the scope of this evidence. The gallery buzzed. Patel didn't flinch. For the next 3 hours, the court transformed into a secure zone. Spectators were cleared. Only the judge, lawyers, and a small detail of federal marshals remained. The witness was not in the room. Only their sworn words were. Patel presented the first document. This is a digital wire transfer for $75,000 routed from a Cayman Islands firm to an entity called Eurotech Solutions. Qui sauter. The recipient is registered under an alias, but the mailing address is shared with 3 prior associates of the defendant. He laid out a second. This timestamp aligns with a message received by an anonymous witness just 30 minutes after Jane completed her first testimony. Then came the affidavit. The author, known only as Witness 17, described in detail how they were tasked with laundering digital payments through IT consulting invoices. There is no legal contract. These are ghost payments, the affidavit read. They are coordinated with public court dates. The names of sealed witnesses are accessed through unauthorized back-end logins. The judge asked, "Is this whistleblower in danger?" Patel replied, "Yes." Immediate protective custody recommended. The judge ordered it on the spot. Outside the closed session, news trickled through leaks. Speculation spread like a match on dry grass. Payments linked to witness intimidation. Who is Eurotech? Sealed witness claims digital cover-up. Agnello returned to court with fire in his eyes. Your Honor, we object to the reliability of unauthenticated documentation. If the witness will not testify in person, how can we cross-examine? Patel countered. This isn't theater, it's a safety net. You don't cross-examine a witness under threat of death without ensuring they'll survive the answer. The judge allowed the materials under protective review. Jane sat in the back now, no longer on the stand, but never far from it. She watched as her truth turned into a web, not just about Diddy, about everyone who helped keep the system silent. And then, without warning, a hand rose in the gallery. It was the woman from the back row, the one holding the child when Anton testified. She spoke without being prompted. My name is Alina. I was with Jane that night. I never thought I'd come here. But I can't watch this alone anymore. Chaos erupted. Bailiffs moved. Lawyers shouted. The judge ordered silence. Patel looked at Alina. Do you understand what you're doing? She nodded. I do. I'm done hiding. Court was adjourned, but a new wave had begun. Outside cameras caught her name, her face, her walk down the steps. And just like that, the case had its first unsealed witness. The next day began with silence, not just in the courtroom but everywhere. Outside the courthouse, crowds lined the barriers, quieter than before. News anchors spoke in lower tones. Protest signs, once bold and antagonistic, now fluttered with hesitation. Alina's decision to come forward had changed the air. Inside, Judge Harlan took the bench, more deliberate than ever. This court has now received testimony from 3 protected witnesses, 1 open witness and a federal affidavit indicating active interference. The nature of this trial has shifted. As such, the court will proceed with heightened caution. Further disruptions will be met with contempt. He paused, scanning the room. We will now hear from Ms. Alina Hart. Gasps whispered through the gallery. Her full name had been released. On record, on purpose. She walked steadily to the stand. There were no sunglasses, no scarf. Her hair was tied back, her face bare of makeup. She wore a plain gray blouse and jeans, unremarkable, intentional. Kash Patel stood, every move calculated. Ms. Hart, for the record, were you present in Las Vegas 2024, in the suite described in earlier testimony? Yes. Were you employed by any entertainment group at the time? No. I was a guest, a friend of Jane's. And had you met Mr. Combs before that evening? Only briefly, once at an event. Nothing personal. Patel moved forward slowly. Tell the court what you witnessed. Alina took a deep breath. Jane was not herself that night. She looked dimmed. She smiled, but not with her eyes. She drank, but too quickly. She kept looking at the door. Why the door? She wanted to leave, but she didn't feel allowed. Objection from the defense. Speculation. Sustained, the judge said. Patel rephrased. Did she say anything to you? She said, don't make a scene. She said it 3 times. That's not something Jane ever said before. What happened in the suite? There were 4 men, 3 cameras, music. Jane was told to sit next to Anton. She did. Someone passed her a joint. She didn't want it. One man said, don't kill the vibe. Did she comply? She took it, pretended to smoke. I saw her exhale nothing. The jury scribbled. Juror 6 didn't. And Mr. Combs, he came in later, gave Anton a nod, then sat across from Jane and watched. Didn't speak for the first few minutes, just watched. Did he instruct anyone? Not with words. But people moved when he raised his hand. The cameras stopped when he stood. Patel's tone softened. Did anything happen you considered coercive? Alina looked at the judge. Permission to speak freely, the judge nodded. You're under oath. Speak truthfully. I saw Jane cry without a sound. That's how I define coercion. No one told her she had to perform, but she did, because the entire room told her not to disobey. That's not freedom. That's fear in formal wear. The room didn't move. Agnello began his cross-examination, slow and quiet. Ms. Hart, you are a close friend of Jane's, yes. Have you benefited from media attention in the past? No. I've avoided it. And you came forward only after 3 other witnesses did I came forward, when I realized silence was a lie, no further questions. Patel called for a short recess. Outside, Alina stood beneath a tree surrounded by agents. No microphones, no cheers, just wait. Back in court, Patel approached the bench. Your Honor, we now request the subpoena of internal security logs from the Mayfair Hotel, Las Vegas. Time frame April 10 to April 12, 2024. Agnello objected. Fishing expedition. Overruled, Harlan said. Serve the order. The court adjourned early. The next morning the logs arrived. With them timestamps, keycard entries, and something else, archived footage from a private hallway camera. What it showed wasn't dramatic. Jane leaving the suite, wiping her face. Diddy 30 seconds later, alone. Then 2 men in suits, entering the suite. Leaving 5 minutes later carrying a case labeled AV. No words, no sound. But movements matter. Patel showed it to the court. Timing tells stories. Power leaves fingerprints. You just have to look at the pauses. For the first time, the jury leaned forward in full. That evening, Kash Patel's office received another file. An email. No subject, no name. Just a file named Safe House Call MP3. The file was short. 47 seconds of grainy audio, faint but clear enough. Someone breathing, a phone ringing, then a voice. He's going to move her. Tonight. They're cleaning the place. That girl saw too much. Kash Patel played it twice, then called the cybersecurity team. Verify the origin. Now. Hours later, confirmation came back. The recording had been uploaded through a secure military relay point, an access protocol, known only to a handful of people within intelligence sharing networks. The signature matched a whistleblower code previously used in 2 other federal corruption cases. This wasn't random. Patel's response was swift. He moved to motion an emergency session before Judge Harlan, his words sharp. This court needs to hear that audio. We believe it pertains directly to the physical safety of at least one known witness and may implicate deliberate evidence destruction. By noon, the courtroom was sealed again. The tape played. The voice, likely male, slightly distorted, spoke quickly. She's not supposed to talk. The deal was clear. Money silence. But she's talking, and they're not going to wait around. Jane's face went pale. Judge Harlan sat back. Who is they? Patel answered. Unknown, but we believe this confirms that intimidation isn't speculative. It's planned. Agnello objected. The voice is unverifiable hearsay. But Patel didn't flinch. So was Watergate until someone listened. The judge allowed the audio into sealed record, and the case, once slow and procedural, now felt alive. Urgent, dangerous. Outside federal agents were reassigned to Jane, Alina, and Anton. Full surveillance, anonymous housing. The DOJ sent a second protective unit. That night, news broke that the Mayfair Hotel had been served a federal preservation order. Employees were questioned. One bellhop vanished from schedule. Daybreak brought a twist. Patel entered the courtroom with an envelope. This was left at our office Dropbox, no return address. He opened it before the court. Inside, a hotel guest log from April 2024, handwritten, unofficial. But one name stood out. Not Combs, not Anton, not Jane, a congressional aide, linked to a judiciary committee. Patel's tone darkened. If someone in government had eyes on this, it's not just witness tampering, it's obstruction by those who craft the laws. Gasps. The judge ordered verification. It took 24 hours, but the handwriting matched a visitor log from a Capitol Hill briefing room. Same pen, same loop in the G. Agnello launched into damage control. Your Honor, we're drifting from the scope of the trial into conspiracy theater. But Harlan didn't blink. We don't ignore fire because it burns too wide. That afternoon, Patel stepped into the center of the courtroom. No podium, just his voice. You want motive? This case is about more than assault. It's about leverage. Who holds it? how they trade it, and what they're willing to erase to keep it. Then he turned to Jane. "Do you remember being photographed that night?" She hesitated. "Yes. I saw a flash from the corner. Did you consent?" Number Patel nodded. "We've subpoenaed device data from the AV case seen in hotel footage. It held not just recordings but biometric scans, heat signatures, facial tracking. It landed like a bomb. You weren't guests. You were cataloged." The courtroom was stunned, not with noise but silence so thick it choked. The session ended in silence, but the war had opened. Outside media called it the exposure trial. Inside, Patel opened one final envelope. Inside, a list of names, dozens, each labeled untested witness, and a note some of us saw, "We're ready." The floodgate had cracked, and no one could stop what was coming. Just a few years from now, the courthouse will still stand its stone walls, a little older, its halls quieter, but no less watchful. The trial of Sean Combs, once treated as a celebrity scandal, will be studied in classrooms and briefing rooms under the banner of institutional reckoning. Legal textbooks will detail its timeline, but what people will remember are the faces of those who testified and those who nearly didn't. New divisions will form: digital witness protection units, ethics audit squads, fast response legal advocacy teams. They'll cite this case as the catalyst not for the facts it exposed, but the power structures it disrupted. Kash Patel will transition from prosecutor to educator, speaking less about law and more about courage. His favorite phrase, "You don't cross-examine a witness under threat of death without ensuring they'll survive." The answer will appear above courtroom doors and in policy briefings. Jane will remain unnamed but not unrecognized. A foundation in her pseudonym will fund survivor justice centers and trauma-informed legal support. Her legacy won't be about exposure, it will be about protection. Anton's voice will circulate quietly. His insights passed between advocacy circles. His guidebook will become a staple in witness training, its title whispered with respect. Alina's heart clause will expand internationally, shaping how courts treat high-risk testimony. Her nonprofit will connect survivors, lawyers, and journalists through encrypted platforms that prioritize dignity before disclosure. The phrase "truth needs armor" will linger not as satire but as signal. Etched into courtroom wood, quoted in Senate hearings, remembered in opening statements, and in a familiar courtroom on a day like any other, another trial will begin. A judge will glance at a laminated note. A witness will take the stand under protection, and someone quietly, solemnly will recall, "This is where the silence ended." Because the legacy of that case isn't a headline, it's a shift, a reminder. That truth once unsealed doesn't whisper. It walks in unafraid and takes its seat.